Hi, I'm Clint Carney from System Sen, and today we're going to make some severed fingers. Today's video is going to be all about making these little severed fingers. To be honest, I just made these with material I had on hand, and you most likely don't have the same material on hand, but hopefully you can get something out of the video and learn a thing or two about how to make little simple props like this. Just to remind you guys, once we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm giving away this pumpkin that I made in the last video. If you want to find out how you can win this pumpkin, check out my last video and you'll find out all about it there. Okay, let's make some severed fingers.
So rather than sculpting fingers, I'm opting for the easier way, which is to just mold my own fingers. And I had some liquid latex lying around, as I always do. So I just put a bunch of liquid latex on my fingers and used the blow dryer to dry each layer and kind of repeat that over and over again. I think all total, I put 5 or 6 layers of latex on here. If you're going to do this, it's not super comfortable. I've done this a ton of times since I was a kid, so I'm very used to having latex on my skin. But a couple things to look out for. One, make sure you don't have a latex allergy, because that would be not so good. And also, if you're blow drying it, make sure that the heat doesn't get too hot. Definitely never use a heat gun on yourself. And with the blow dryer, you can use that cool setting so that it's not super hot. But you don't actually have to use a blow dryer either, but it will take forever. Use baby powder so that the latex doesn't stick to itself. That's a very important step. Otherwise, you're going to ruin your molds right away. Once the latex is dry, here comes the fun part, which is just peeling off the latex, and you have little molds. You'll see even here, they tend to want to stick to each other. So you got to just throw some powder on there and they won't stick. So when I was a kid, I used to make severed fingers doing it this way, and then I would just leave it like that have like a inside out mold, and it has all the detail of your fingers, but it's just in reverse. But, as a kid, that was good enough for me. But now I like to, go the extra mile and turn the molds right side out and, actually pour some material in there to make them. I also should say that if you're going to make severed fingers this way, those molds are a one-time use. They're going to get destroyed after you use them. So just be ready for that. But this is really just a fun and simple project anyway. So I'm not too concerned with having these molds last forever. As I said in the intro, I'm just using all material I already have on hand. So if I wanted to go shopping for this, I probably would have used silicone or something for the fingers. But in this case, I'm just going to do hard resin fingers because they'll still look pretty cool. I'm using a material called Smooth Cast 325. It's a translucent resin, and then I can just mix pigment with it. So it's 2 parts, mix part A and B together evenly, and I put my pigment in part B. So you mix that together, and you've got about a minute or so to mix it up, and then just go ahead and pour it in the molds. And this particular resin takes just about 10 minutes to fully dry, which is not too bad at all. When you're pouring resin, you want to use a respirator because it is a harmful chemical. You don't really want to be breathing that in. One thing about using a translucent resin as opposed to a fully opaque resin is you just get a more realistic look to it in terms of the skin tone, because it is, kind of translucent even after you put the pigment in it. So it just feels more real. I failed at pulling these out of the mold on camera, but I can assure you those molds were completely destroyed as I demolded the fingers. And here they came out again. These are just, quick and dirty, fun props. So, they're not perfect, but they are pretty fun. There are a few flaws, but that's okay. It's a severed finger, so I'm just going to take my Dremel and Dremel out those flaws. But I'm also going to add some additional detail with the Dremel too for the stumps. When you're using a Dremel, make sure you wear goggles because you don't want to get any pieces of plastic in your eye. So I'm just using this little sanding stone bit to make the edges of the finger more rough, and I'm kind of creating a little bone shape in the center of the finger as well. And I'm just going to add some additional wounds on some of the fingers just to, make them more gross. That's the goal. We want them to be as gross as possible. This is the fun part, because you get to do a little sculpting with your Dremel and create, kind of the final look for what those fingers are going to be. Then I just use some canned air to blow out all the extra dust. And I'm going to paint these fingers with oil paint thinned down with odorless terpenoid. I'm going to use very thin washes of the paint, so it actually won't take too long to dry, even though oil paint normally does take a while to dry. For this paint job, I only end up using 2 colors. One is iron oxide red, which is that brownish red on the left-hand side, and the other is alizarin crimson, which is more of the blood red. And the first thing I do is I just take this really watered down iron oxide red, not watered down, but thinned out with the terpenoid, and I just put a very light coat over the whole finger except for the fingernail, and then I wipe it off with a paper towel. And then I go in with the alizarin crimson and I just add all the gory bits, all the detail in there with the red. And then I'll go and take some of the iron oxide red and just add that to the deeper parts of the wounds as well. Very simple paint job, but very effective. When you use a thin amount of the paint to wash over the full finger, what happens is that the paint seeps into the details of the casting, so it really shows off, the wrinkles in the skin and all the real nice details. It just really helps bring them out and makes it look more realistic. I'll put a link in the description to where you can buy some of the Smooth Cast 325 if you like the look of this and want to give it a shot. But once you have those latex molds, you can always use other cheaper material too. You could use plaster of Paris and then just paint that up. That's really easy to get at any craft store. This is just kind of a fun prop, fun little basic thing. I've been making severed fingers since I was a little kid. It's always a go-to staple if you're bored and have an excess of materials lying around and a few hours free time. And there they are. There's the final fingers. They came out pretty neat. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you end up making these too, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see your work. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support.
Thanks again for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It really helps me out. And have a happy Halloween. See you next time.